All right, welcome back. This is part 3 of the Pi-hole setup, and this should be the final part of this process. At this point, hopefully your Pi-hole is installed physically somewhere in your network, ideally connected over Ethernet, not using Wi-Fi, so you don't get that extra latency every time you ask for a DNS server request. Hopefully at this point you also did record or take a picture of the password and web address that it went to. So whatever the IP address is. If you used a static IP for your Pi-hole, that's good. But if you didn't use a static IP, like I did not, I'll show you how to go around that. And I actually prefer it this way because if I have to reformat the Pi and reinstall it, so they're very easy to corrupt if the power goes out and the file system gets messed up and it doesn't shut down properly. So you may have to reinstall it every once in a while. The nice thing about setting it up this way is you don't have to reset up a static IP. You just reinstall Pi, smash enter all the way through, and then it'll get the IP that's assigned via its MAC address, and that's assigned through the router. So I want to show that first. So this part is going to be a little different based on your router, but I have a Ubiquiti router, and what you want to do is find wherever it is in your router settings that you can assign your static IP addresses and DNS servers. And this is my network setup, so you can see a bunch of devices here and all their local IP addresses and their MAC addresses. And what you want to do is find the device that is the Pi. And on my network, I've already done it, so I have it assigned to a static IP here, and you can see Pi-hole. And what I did is found this MAC address, and then went to my router and actually assigned it the IP that I wanted it to have. And that way, whenever this device with that MAC address connects, it'll always get that IP address, no matter what the Pi-hole is. So the Pi-hole is just set up using DHCP, and it'll get its address. That may screw some things up if you're using it as a web server for other purposes, but for Pi it works just fine. And then once that's set up, you go over to the details section, wherever that is, to put in your kind of the LAN range, and make your DNS server the Pi-hole. So here it's 192.168.0.200, and I put that because it's outside of the range of the two LANs that I have, up to 99 and then 100 to 199. Since I'm using those for Wi-Fi. And you just put this on your router, so that way you don't have to go to each computer and set up the DNS server individually. So what I'll show you next is I'm using Windows 10, and you may, if you're using a different operating system or if these options are buried, what you eventually want to find is your network adapter settings, and you should see the older school Windows window like this, and it'll have whatever, if you have some virtual network set up for your VPN or whatever the case is, but the one that's connected is the one that's going out to the internet right now. So the thing to do is check out your IP version 4 settings and just make sure that that's connecting to the DNS server automatically. That may be an issue if you had set this to maybe Google's DNS or 1.0, but just set this automatically, and then you can pick whichever DNS you want inside of Pi, since Pi is going to manage all of the DNS requests. If you do want each individual computer to go to the Pi, or if you want a computer to not go to the Pi, you would just set that here. Maybe you want this computer to go to Google. But you can also just set that up through the Pi-hole. So make sure your computers are set on automatic for IPv4, and that will make sure that all of the DNS requests come to the Pi-hole that is set up in the router. Okay, so the next part is actually accessing the Pi-hole. So you will need to reboot the Pi if you changed its IP address, but if you're just using whatever IP address it was assigned to and you set that as its static, just make sure it's not inside your range so it doesn't get handed to another device. So pick something outside of your normal IP range. And once that's complete, you can access the Pi-hole interface a couple ways. You should be able just to type pi.hole, and that should bring you to it. You can also type the IP address of the Pi-hole. So remember, mine was 192.168.0.200, and that will bring you to the main page. If you type /admin, it'll bring you to the actual admin panel. This is just the placeholder for the DNS requests. So it doesn't really do anything for you, but you can click the link or type /admin. And that'll be the same as going to Pi-hole. You'll be greeted with this login page. And this is where you need the password, and I've already typed it in. I'm going to click remember for 7 days on this device. That's fine. And once you log in, this is what you're greeted with. So I've been running this Pi-hole for a while, and you could see the activity. So last night, activity, whatever, my phone was doing something, things were uploading and downloading, asking a bunch of requests until 5 a.m., and then I probably went to work, and that was all gone. So you can see, when the activity is, something here, maybe the refrigerator was trying to sell some data, and you can see which queries were blocked from what IPs, and that'll help you do a little bit of investigating on what's actually going on in your network. So if you want to change some of the DNS settings, you just go to settings and then DNS, and you can pick whichever ones you want. I'm using Cloudflare, but you can switch to OpenDNS or Google or whatever you'd like, and this is where you set them, or you can simply just type in maybe your internet service provider's IP addresses for their DNS servers if you really want. I personally would just use 1dot or Cloudflare or OpenDNS or something else. You can also use the Pi-hole as a DHCP server if you need to, but I'm guessing if you have a router, you should be good. So the only other thing to really deal with in here on a daily basis is the block list. And this has just various things that you've blocked. And these all come from lists that are generated online. And what you'll see if you go to those links, they're literally just a text file with some websites on it. And it says, hey, if it phones to this website, when you look it up in the DNS registry, don't go to that site, and it'll just load a blank page. And I'll show you an example. So one website that's pretty bad is Speed Test. And if you go to speedtest.net, there's usually banner ads all over the place. This is a fresh install of Windows in this computer, so I haven't been to speedtest.net yet. If you've been to speedtest.net and all of those ads and cookies have been cached already, they won't disappear automatically. So make sure you clear your history and your cookies and all of the cache. But I shouldn't see any of those banner ads, because typically you would see banner ads on the top, banner ads on the sides, all over. You start getting pop-ups. So this website's, historically pretty terrible. But as you can see, there's no banner ads, and it loads a little faster. It costs you a little less bandwidth, and just doing a speed test to show everything still works, and that's fine. So next, the only other thing you may want to is maybe you want to go to a certain website that is blocked, and if something was blocked, you can check and see at the query log. Let's see. I just went to speed test, Tizen store, so my refrigerator's probably trying to buy something. But you can see, what was this? Nexus Rules Live, Office Apps Live. So maybe Microsoft Office from this computer, remember, because that's my IP address here, was trying to... 67 is actually my computer. So it was my other computer was probably running Microsoft Office, and it tried to do something. But somebody put it on the block list, so they blocked it. If you see something on here that you didn't want blocked, for instance, all you would do is click on whitelist, and then that would go away. And it would be added to your whitelist of websites that maybe, for instance, the Etcher website is normally blocked for whatever reason. I think it's because it's a .io, and some of these lists are a little aggressive, but this is the website that we use to set up the Pi-hole and etch the SD card. So that one was blocked on my Pi-hole, and I had to whitelist it, so you can see that here. And that's really it. If there is something that you need to do temporarily, say if you go to a website that has some features that are not working because of the Pi-hole, I use this all the time. Just go and disable it for 5 minutes. A lot of websites that use their various payment options will have some kind of tracking cookies or something for their analytics, and a lot of times it'll screw up the payment process. So if you're having that problem, I usually, if I'm going to buy something and it's a website that I don't normally use, I'll just turn this off for 5 minutes, do what I need to do, and then let the Pi-hole, it'll turn itself right back on once it's done. And that's it. Once you can look around in here and see everything that's going on your system. It will also notify you if you need to update. So you can see here that I'm running these versions of the FTL and web interface. And if those need to be updated, you could do that here, or you can SSH into the Pi-hole. So if that's set up, just open up your console, SSH into the Pi-hole, and then run the appropriate commands to update everything, let it restart, and then you'll be good to go. One last thing is, if you do use it, they do all this work for free. So if you want to donate to the Pihole company, I'm sure they'd appreciate it, because they support the software, and it actually takes money away from the people who are getting ad revenue. So if you want to maybe control where you're spending your ad revenue, that would be one way to deal with it. All right. If this was interesting to you and if it works for you, feel free to go down into the comments and let me know what you think. If you need to see anything else, or if you're having trouble setting up your Pihole, again, leave it in the comments and let me know, and I'll see if I can help you out. I'll see you next time.